This is very similar to one of my previous videos, but put together in a slightly different way and being a bit more graphical. I've had the Apple Watch now for about 4 days, and here are some of my thoughts over some of the new features that I feel it could have to make it even better than it is already. First of all the screens that I'm showing here have been taken from the actual 42mm version of the watch. So here's an example of the main UI, and these are screenshots taken directly from the phone. The first thing I feel it should have is an always-on mode. The number of times when you flick your wrist to try and look at the time and it doesn't actually trigger. It doesn't happen that often, but when it does happen it's a bit annoying and you have to do a sort of second flick. Most of the time the reason you're flicking your wrist is to be able to look at the time, so it'd be really useful if you had an always-on mode which just showed the time. As long as you made only very few pixels light up, there wouldn't be much power usage because it is an OLED screen. And if you use the colours red, green or solid blue, only a third of the power usage would be used in comparison to having, say, a white text. So in my view, you'd still be able to manage a full day on a single charge. I'm getting almost 2 days out of my watch at the moment with quite good usage, but you should obviously make it optional. How I envisage it looking would be something like this. So the top corner, which already displays the time in applications that you play on the actual watch itself, is the only thing that's lit up, and it's lit up in green or red or blue. So if it does accidentally not switch on when you raise your wrist, at least you can actually see what the time is, which, like I say, for the majority of people, that's what you're actually raising your wrist for at that point. Secondly, one thing that the iDevices category has always been very good at is web applications. Here's an example program I've written that runs as a website, and you can see it running in a normal web browser. And this is the same application now running as a full screen web app that runs on the main from the home screen of the iOS device. This is an iPad specifically. Making the code work on an iOS device is as simple as adding sort of 3 lines of code to your web page, 3 so-called meta tags, one which sets the viewport, which explains how it should be zoomed in or not, and if it can actually be zoomed or not when you want it to. A name which allows you to say it's a web app capable for an Apple mobile device, content equals yes, and a meta name to say what colour you want the status bar to be. Now on the watch you wouldn't need to know what colour status bar because it'd always be black, so you could actually just have 2 meta tags that look something like this. As you can see, I've highlighted in red the changes between the two. If you had it Apple Watch web app capable, content equals yes, that would be quite useful, so say that web page itself can be run on the Apple Watch. The meta name equals viewport, as is before, but this time you're saying whether the crown is basically being used as a scrolling device or if it's being used to scale the screen. So if you say that crown scalable is no, that means you can't scale in and out of the screen size, so if it's an image that you don't want to zoom in and out of. Whereas if it's set to yes, using the digital crown will actually zoom the image instead. So how would you actually install the watch app onto your Apple Watch? Well, actually you could do it in a very simple and simplistic way. In the same way as when you install a web app onto your iOS device, if you had a meta tag on that page that said Apple Watch web app capable and then the content was actually an address, a website address, that website address could point to the first page of your web app capable Apple Watch program. And then what you do is, once you've installed this on your iDevice, it will automatically install the item on your Apple Watch as well. The icon can be set via another meta tag in the same way as it currently is for an iOS device, and it would mean that you'd have the ability to run web apps on your Apple Watch in the same way as you do currently on your iDevice. And as the model for Apple Watch currently for the applications is very similar to a web-based model, but instead of connecting to a server, you're connecting to your phone to send and receive messages. Building software for the Apple Watch that runs over to a web shouldn't actually be that difficult, and as long as you use sort of standardized buttons and drop-down lists, etc., that the watch itself rendered into the correct format, it would be perfectly acceptable to run web apps on an Apple Watch without having to crane your head and try and look at normal websites. Hopefully this has been an interesting video for you guys. If you like it, feel free to make comments. If you feel that I'm completely going off on a tangent that would never work for something like the Apple Watch, also please let me know in the comments, and I will try and respond to as many as I can.